So for a while now, I've been under the impression that there are too many people that are unaware of the brilliance of one of my favorite actresses, the legendary and iconic Elaine Stritch.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be a good idea to make a little video which could serve as a crash course for anyone who doesn't know Elaine and wants to, as well as something fun for those who are already fans. Trying to encapsulate this person in one video is daunting, so I've decided to restrict myself to 5 Elaine moments that I think give a good example of how incredible she was, both in performance and just being herself. These are in no particular order and have been chosen in an attempt to find things that even people familiar with her may not have seen before, as well as stuff that is available in some way on YouTube. So I'm sorry if I leave out your favorite thing, but this is my disclaimer, so I've warned you. Most of my information and research is from this book, Still Here, The Madcap, Nervy, Singular Life of Elaine Stritch by Alexandra Jacobs, as well as her one-woman show, Elaine Stritch at Liberty, and her documentary made towards the end of her life, Elaine Stritch, Shoot Me, both of which are essential viewing for fans. Making her professional debut in 1944, Elaine Stritch had a career that literally lasted 7 decades. Her last credit on IMDb, the voice of Ruth in Randy Cunningham 9th Grade Ninja, was in 2014, the year she died. She was the life of any party she attended and stole the show every time she performed. She studied acting with Marlon Brando and Walter Matthau. She did karaoke with her friend Noel Coward. She outdrank Judy Garland.
And she put her hand out to me and she said, "Elaine, I never thought I'd say this, but good night."
She went on an awful date with Frank Sinatra.
I had a blind date with guess who? Frank Sinatra.
What?
Well into the dinner, he said to me, "So you're in the theater, eh? People in the theater ain't going no place."
No.
And I said to Frank Sinatra, who was right with me on the martinis,
Surprise.
and I said, "Really, well, for a long time, Mr. Sinatra, I've been dying to meet you so I could ask you where the hell you think you're going." He stood up and he said, "Get her out of here."
Whoa.
And I went to Hamburger Hamlet on Sunset Boulevard with the driver and had dinner.
As well as a slightly better one with JFK.
And so he dropped me off. I said, "You want to come up for a nightcap?" I didn't have anything in mind. I had never slept with anybody before. I didn't know how to handle that. He said, "If coming up for a nightcap means listening to Glenn Miller records and eating scrambled eggs, I'm not interested." And I said, "Well, that's what it means." And he said, "So I'll kiss you goodnight." And he did. And he got back in the limo and went away. And I went up on the elevator and I said, "That guy's going someplace because he knows how to lay it on the line. And so do I."
She had a huge personality, and I think that, more than anything, made her a star. She was a wonderful actress, but I personally first noticed her outside of a role, just being Elaine. Any interview with her is pretty much guaranteed to be entertaining.
If you just say things naturally, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, they just think and fuck.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Okay.
And she would take any opportunity to make people laugh. This brings me to my first suggestion. Over the years, Elaine has participated in a number of game shows.
Sounds like color.
She was only 8.
Sounds like...
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
She was
sounds
only
like...
8.
No!
But this one is probably my favorite example. On September 11th, 1982, Elaine appeared on the BBC radio comedy game show, Just a Minute.
Hello and welcome to Just a Minute.
Beginning in 1967, Just a Minute was a game show where panelists were challenged to talk for 60 seconds on a given subject. The chairman runs the game and makes judgment over the validity of challenges. Panelists get points for making correct challenges, or sometimes just being funny. After making a correct challenge, the player must take over for the remaining time until the whistle blows. The whole thing is pretty loose. This was Elaine's only appearance on the show, and Nicholas Parsons, the presenter for over 50 years, has cited her as one of his favorite guests.
But we're also delighted to welcome a guest who has not played before. She's had the courage to come and pit her wits and her talent against these three intrepid players of the game. It's that lovely actress, Elaine Stritch.
Elaine was up against seasoned competitors, not to mention being the sole woman on an all-male panel, and the sole American on a British show. You can tell she's thrown a bit at first and laughing at the craziness of the game.
There are 8 seconds for you to take over the subject of kangaroo pie, Kenneth, starting now.
This would be made most deliciously, of course, by none other than Elaine Stritch. Because...
Cameron Freud is challenged.
I don't accept that.
You don't accept it.
Elaine Stritch.
She chimes in a few times towards the beginning, already hilarious with her confusion.
Elaine Stritch is a conservationist of a high order and wouldn't kill kangaroos to make pie.
But she might make a pie if someone else killed a kangaroo. We don't know. Would you?
Well, I don't know what to do in this game, honestly.
She expresses that she's confused by the rules and feeling overwhelmed.
I've never been so terrified in my whole life. They taught me how to play the game, or thought they did, and now I have to say whether I would be in a kangaroo pie or have anything to do with making... No, I would not, if that's going to clear this game up.
I don't think anything will ever clear this game up.
Well, it has nothing to do with loving animals. I don't want to eat a kangaroo.
Elaine...
I'd much rather see Barnum. I mean, this is ridiculous. When is it my turn?
We give Elaine a bonus point for her contribution to the show.
However, with her first challenge, she gets a huge laugh.
Quite right. So, Kenneth, you have the subject with 46 seconds left. What makes me fall about laughing starting now?
It is unquestionably Frankie Howard. I remember him talking about going down to Checkers. And he said, I was trying to get in there to see Macmillan, you know, the lovely spread he's got there. Beautiful place, goes with the job, of course. And he wouldn't come. I was shouting through the letterbox, but he never appeared. And I thought it comes up with a wonderful picture. Of course.
Elaine Stritch, you've challenged.
I can't hear you. Or understand you, Kenneth.
After that, she goes on to steal the show. You can tell from the reaction at the end that the audience wanted to keep going and see what she'd come up with. It makes me wish she would have done more of these. She's so funny and seems right in her element.
And I think it is a cheat. I meant to say something about Kenneth. He has a wonderful gimmick on this show.
Oh, yes.
Well, you see, he makes one word into a 3-act play. And I think it's the greatest gimmick. And you can't challenge him on it, but that I just take. I don't mean to be unkind or anything, but I just couldn't hear.
Oh, don't worry. Don't be inhibited. Everybody is in this show.
But I'll get used to it if I'm asked back.
But he did repeat the word there, which
Oh, well, that has nothing to do with it.
It has everything to do with it.
Elaine was probably best known for her work on the New York stage, which ended with her turn in the revival of A Little Night Music in 2010. She was very well respected in the theater world and was in a number of interesting and diverse productions throughout her career, including starring in the original musical Goldilocks, which was a flop, an absurdist Samuel Beckett play, Endgame, and even doing a tour of The King and I in the 60s. There's not really much available of Elaine's early stage work. However, during the original run of Edward Albee's play, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Elaine was brought in as a replacement Martha.
Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf, Virginia Woolf, Virginia Woolf? Who's afraid of Virginia Woolf?
She took over matinee performances in 1963, while legend Udo Hagen was performing in the evenings. At some point, Elaine's rendition had an audio recording made, which you can find at the moment on YouTube. When Elaine joined the cast, the show was already a hit, and she was able to put her own stamp on the role.
Hey, what's that from? What a dump.
What's what from?
I just told you I just did it. What a dump, huh? What's that from?
I haven't the faintest idea.
Dumbbell.
If you aren't familiar, the play is about a dysfunctional and often emotionally abusive married couple, Martha and George.
Oh, bringing things up.
Oh, George.
Always.
Poor Georgie. Georgie, put a palm by. Oh, what are you doing? Are you sulking? Huh? Let me see. Are you sulking? Is that what you're doing?
Never mind, Mike.
Oh.
Just don't bother yourself.
Oh.
It's set on a single night when they've invited a naive couple over to their house after a party. Martha and George proceed to psychologically terrorize their guests, as well as each other, with a series of mind games, which culminates in a devastating and uncomfortable revelation. In a letter to Noel Coward, she said, "Very good money, and my God, what a part. I do so want to do a straight play, and it does seem that this is the best one around. I am really so pleased they asked for me, as I understand every actress in New York is after it." Up front, Elaine seems like an obvious choice for the brash, liquored-up Martha.
Not all night braying at everybody the way you do.
I don't bray.
All right, you don't bray.
I do not bray.
All right.
But outside of stage performances, this is a kind of role you don't normally see Elaine doing. On top of being the lead, which she wasn't often, Martha gets to be cruel and abrasive while also being very vulnerable and agonized.
Can't not do that!
I thought you should know.
Oh, my God, no. No! You cannot do that! You can't decide that for yourself! You can't do this! I won't let you do this!
Steady, steady.
You get your hands off of me!
It's really beautiful to hear her go there emotionally, when I'm personally used to her being the ham. Particularly, this role seemed to have a significant effect on Elaine, as this anecdote from her documentary shows.
I did Virginia Woolf on Broadway. When we had our big fights, when he yelled at me and he screamed, "Our son is dead." And he screamed it in my face. And for the first time in my life, I had an orgasm.
Then, poof, just like that. Now, how do you like it?
No!
This recording is one of the only glimpses we have of her non-musical stage roles, and it's required listening. While Elaine performed in many plays during her life, she found most of her success and fame in the musical theater. Early on, she was a standby for Ethel Merman in Call Me Madam. She was a hit in the first revival of Pow Joey, and starred in an original Noel Coward musical, Sail Away, which was a hit in both New York and London.
He said, "And I want you to behave yourself, because I want to show my star off, and I want you to be absolutely perfection." So I thought to myself, I went out and I bought a new dress at Harrods that was so Katharine Hepburn that you couldn't believe it. It had a neck that was so high it was dangerous. I mean, it looked like you were, yeah. And I went to the party, and I didn't drink a drop of anything. I had ginger ale all evening long. So Noel called me the next day, or saw me the next day in my dressing room, and he said, "Elaine," and I always knew it was serious because there was no Stritchy around. "Elaine, I ask you to behave yourself. I did not ask you to behave like a f***ing geography teacher."
But she is probably most remembered for originating this particular role. I wanted to include a bit of Elaine in her iconic role of Joan in Stephen Sondheim's Company. There isn't actually any available footage of the original production. However, in April 1993, the original cast reunited for a benefit concert more than 20 years after the original Broadway run. If you've seen the show before, you know that Joanne is a character with a lot of witty one-liners and bravado, but as the show goes on, you realize it shields some sadness and genuine bitterness below the surface. As far as Elaine is concerned, people are probably most familiar with her performance of The Ladies Who Lunch over the years.
Let's hear it for the ladies who lunch. Everybody rise! 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 Rise!
specifically the infamous recording session for the cast album.
And looking grim, 'cause they've been sitting, choosing a hat. I'm just screaming! It's too early to scream.
In the play, this is the 11 o'clock number, where Joanne reveals herself to the audience in a drunken rant. However, I wanted to shed some light on her comedic chops and hamminess as Joanne, that you can see here in this performance of Side by Side by Side. The number comes at the top of Act 2 and has most of the cast in it. There are a couple different videos of this performance, however, in this one, you see a bit more of what Elaine is doing during the number. Even from the album recording session, you can see how much fun Elaine has with this song. It's truly an ensemble number, but here she unabashedly upstages everyone and makes the moment her own. Watching how she times her bits throughout is a masterclass in comedy. She is so relaxed about it. She gets this huge laugh just by timing a really funny late entrance that you can barely see. She even gives us a little tap moment. It makes me wish footage of her original performance decades earlier was available, but at least we have this peek at the kind of presence and attention she commands, even with the smallest gesture. The whole thing builds up to her last bit, where she certainly walks off the stage with the audience in her pocket. Other than the stage, she had the most success on television over the years. Early on, she was even in an original iteration of The Honeymooners as the friend and neighbor Trixie.
Something.
What's the matter with you? Are you tired? No. My wife's the only one who gets tired.
Well, get a load of him. I hang over a hot stove all day while you're down in a nice cool sewer.
How I ever married you, I'll never know.
I'll tell you how you ever married me. You came over to the house and asked me. What I want to know is why you ever married me.
Don't ask me, you mix the drinks.
She had a very successful British sitcom in the late 70s called Two's Company. The show ran for 4 seasons and has one of my favorite theme songs.
Two's company, ordinarily two's company, but contrarily we disagree.
In 1993, she won an Emmy for a guest appearance on Law & Order.
Filed a false report because you felt your failure to stop might be perceived as a dereliction of duty. Is that right?
Yes.
She was sitting right next to you. Presumably you both saw the same thing.
I can tell when a guy's just trying to get lucky.
And your partner can't. Why? Because she's a woman?
Objection.
Withdrawn.
In 2004, HBO recorded and released her one-woman show, Elaine Stritch at Liberty, which won 2 Emmys, one for Outstanding Variety, Music, or Comedy Special, and one for Elaine specifically for Individual Performance in a Variety or Music Program, the second of which gave us one of the best and most memorable Emmy speeches ever. I chose this moment because this is the first time I fell in love with Elaine. The ceremony aired September 19th, 2004, and I must have been watching live because I remember seeing this speech and thinking, I have no idea who this is, but that lady is the coolest person ever. I want to be friends with her. I want to be her. This is Elaine's acceptance speech for the Emmy she won for her performance in Elaine Stritch at Liberty. The show was written by Elaine and her collaborator, John Lahr, and directed by George C. Wolfe. The show is an autobiographical cabaret performance featuring personal stories and songs significant to her career and life at large. The show was adapted, filmed, and released by HBO. The special won 2 Emmys, this individual award for Elaine, as well as Outstanding Variety, Music, or Comedy Special. After I saw this, I immediately rented the DVD from Netflix and became obsessed with her. From the moment they call out her name, you can tell you're in for a treat.
And the Emmy goes to Elaine Stritch.
You can feel her excitement as she throws back her head and screams, presumably, "Oh shit!" Her whole journey to the stage is chaotic and just builds the anticipation for her to get to the microphone. When she finally does, she does not disappoint.
Oh my God! Listen. No, that just takes time. Listen to me. I cannot tell you what would have happened to me if I couldn't have gotten out what's inside of me tonight. I don't know what I would have done with it. I try not to drink, but
Her emotion is palpable throughout, and she gets a hysterical laugh every other line.
And look at the company I'm in. Just look at it. I mean, and I'm so glad none of them won. I'm so glad none of them won. I won.
Most likely, a big reason for her excitement receiving this award was because it was her second chance to give a speech after the Tony Awards cut her first one. The band played over her at the ceremony, and from what I understand, the award wasn't even on the broadcast. So here you can tell she's embracing the moment previously stolen from her.
I can hardly take a compliment. I've got a problem. Tonight, be my guest.
Even when the band starts to fade in, she refuses to give up the spotlight, much to everyone's delight.
Everybody at HBO, a class act. I think they do such a great job. And now I'm just going to start saying names, and then they can take me off the stage when they want to. John Schreiber, Penny Baker, Rick Baruda. Now I'm not moving from here till somebody comes and gets me.
And in the end, she leaves us with one of her best one-liners.
You'll never know. You'll just effing never know.
Perhaps Elaine is best known today for her reoccurring role on 30 Rock as Colleen Donaghy, Jack Donaghy's mother.
Wait, it's Mother's Day already?
Did you forget? Colleen is gonna kill you.
There's still time. Jonathan, call the florist and order a dozen. No.
Necktie. Too late, Jackie.
Her appearances on the show were definitely some of its best moments, and in 2007 she won her 3rd acting Emmy for the role.
I see you brought the bag that my bastard grandchild will come in.
Her work in film is a bit lesser known, but she certainly made some interesting movies over the years.
Piece of shit. Which one of the Wright brothers did you buy this from?
Probably the one you dated in high school.
Woo! I feel so much better. That's very reassuring. We have a funny pilot.
Some of her best-known credits include working with Rock Hudson in A Farewell to Arms, the Woody Allen movies September and Small Time Crooks, and Monster-in-Law with Jane Fonda and Jennifer Lopez.
Here we go again. What? You were a television weather woman in Dubuque, Montana. You drove around in a broken-down minivan, and you drank red wine from a box. Ah!
I really could go on, but I would suggest doing your own in-depth research on Elaine, because her life is super interesting, and this barely scrapes the surface on who she was. Other than her one-woman show and documentary, watching her interviews is probably the best way to get to know her. And now, my final suggestion. This one is a bit of a cop-out. I couldn't choose just one, so I suggest watching every single episode of Theater Talk that Elaine was on.
And then look what the cat dragged in.
She's always really in her element anytime she appears on the show. You can tell how at ease she is and how much fun she's having.
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm the show's producer, Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
And tonight we have my favorite actress.
My favorite actress, everybody's favorite actress, Elaine Stritch, making her 5th appearance on Theater Talk. Thank you for coming back and joining us.
Must be doing something right.
You are welcome anytime on Theater Talk.
It's a very relaxing show, and I thank you for asking me. Now, all the proper is out of the way.
Now let's get down to brass tacks.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It's clear to me that she was a favorite guest on the show just based on the number of episodes they had her on. The interviewers, Susan Haskins and Michael Riedel, are great with her too, and clearly adore her. They know how to lead her and what questions to ask her, usually.
But you're at a point in your life now where you have really become a kind of, an iconic New York figure.
What's iconic?
Well, you're a real New York.
What is iconic? Let's all level. Let's all level today and tell each other what iconic means.
You are like as
it's a mouthwash.
More importantly, they don't seem to be afraid of her, which she has cited as a problem she's had throughout her entire career. Here she seems to be at home. She tosses out endless showbiz stories, each one better than the last. And they really let her run rampant, taking control of the interview and cracking the best jokes.
This is Theater Talk, and I am Elaine Stritch, and with me here is my co-host, George C. Wolfe, and our guests for today are the lovely, with a new haircut, Susan Haskell and Michael Riddle.
She gave her last appearance right before she moved out of New York and shortly after passed away. There's not a whole lot to talk about here. Just go watch her be charming while she gives Michael and Susan a run for their money. These videos are definitely comfort food for me. Well, that's it. There were so many more moments that I wanted to include, but now you'll just need to discover them for yourself. Elaine Stritch was a one-of-a-kind person, truly, and there isn't enough material available of her. However, there is still plenty to uncover out there if you're looking for it. If you didn't know anything about Elaine before you started this, I hope this gave you an idea of who she was and encourages you to learn more about her. If you already know, I hope this was a nice reminder. Sadly, we won't get any new Elaine moments unless they discover some lost footage or something. So until that happens, I'll be going over the old classics and hoping that keeps some of her spirit alive. And as was her way, I'll let Elaine have the last word.
That's all I have to say on that subject. Okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yes. Better be.